Hello and welcome back to the Punchers Chance podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be having a look back at Joyce versus Derek Chisora. We're going to be looking forward to the huge card in LA for Riyadh season. As well as that, we're going to be talking about a show that we're going to be attending up in Barnsley and a few talking points in boxing, including the Olympic boxing that recently got going. Now, the only place to start, I think, the only place we can go first is that Joyce Derek Chisora clash in the O2 Arena. Harry's given us a little fist because he got his prediction right on that one. So Harry, I'll let you start off with that performance from Chisora.
Never doubt that man. Derek Chisora. Well, I can't even say what a performance because it wasn't very. They weren't boxing, were they? They were both trying to knock each other out from the very first round. But yeah, I just had a funny feeling it was his last ever fight at the O2, and I just thought to myself, there's no way Chisora would just take this fight and accept a loss. And yeah, he was unbelievable. He got the knockdown as well, and then there was another knockdown in the last round. But I think it was just because both him and Joyce were so exhausted after what was a grueling 10 rounds of basically both men trying to knock each other out. And, you know, now the question marks are, where does Joyce go? Is he done? Is he finished? And, Derek Chisora now, he could have reignited his career. Yeah, he's 48 fights into his professional career. Saudi Arabia, Turkey Al Sheikh loves his heavyweights. So maybe we could have something on the line now. Derek Chisora could be fighting some of the big names again, which is brilliant for boxing.
Yeah, I think that was the issue really is in the fight that two of them were taking such heavy shots and Joyce just can't take those shots anymore. Like the three heavy defeats he's had now on his record, the two with Yang followed by this one, and I think a few years ago you were looking at Joyce that he could sort of walk through those heavy punches, but it's clear to see that he just can't take that sort of damage anymore. And the knockdown, I think, is what ultimately lost him the fight on Saturday. In terms of going forward, like you said, it's difficult to see where he's going to go now, but there was another heavyweight on the card in Moses Atoma who looked unreal and had a very good performance. And I think in terms of going forward, a fight like that is the only thing that could probably get Joyce back in the ring now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think for me the two fights you mentioned, Moses Atoma and obviously Joyce Chisora, those couldn't be more contrasting as heavyweight fights. I mean, Moses Atoma, the footwork, the speed he shows as a heavyweight is so unique. You hardly ever see it. And then obviously Chisora and Joyce, it was a little bit kind of slow motion at times. It was heavy, it was scrappy, but it's everything that we love about British boxing was two guys that regardless of skill, regardless of whatever, it doesn't really matter. What mattered in that fight was heart, and what mattered in that fight was grit. And we know Derek Chisora's got those in abundance. And so I think it was an interesting test for Joyce. Obviously, he beat Joseph Parker a number of years ago. People still talk about that win, and Derek Chisora had come back off some losses, and those two seem to be in completely different trajectories in their career. And a few years down the line, they've met at the same point, and Derek Chisora's got him out of there, which is brilliant to see. And Harry, you said you're back to sort of Chisora's sort of underdog performance, so to speak, and I spent this whole weekend reminding myself about why I love Derek Chisora and why we need to keep him around as long as possible. I said, maybe this is his last fight. I don't want it to be his last fight. I want immediate workout. I want the lot out in Saudi Arabia, like you say, for Derek Chisora. I want as much camera time you can get on that man because it's just entertainment, isn't it? That's what we're in the business for. We're in the business for entertainment, and he brings it more than anyone.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. Him and Zhilei Zhang would be unbelievable, wouldn't it? You know, both men can bang. Zhilei Zhang, that's his nickname, Big Bang. That's a hell of a fight, and that can be made. We know it can be made over in Saudi Arabia, so that could be next for Derek Chisora. The other fight that someone's calling for, I think I read somewhere that Eddie Hearn's wanting him and Johnny Fisher in a fight at the back end of the year. Again, that's a very good test for Johnny Fisher there. But like you say, Joyce, a couple of years ago, we were saying that he could potentially be AJ. after AJ's losses to Ruiz and all that. And a lot of people forget that he's beaten the likes of Dubois, Takam, and Joseph Parker. And look at him now. People are calling for him to retire, basically. But I just think that, as Ben said earlier, that fight against Zhang for Joyce is taking it all out of him. And he's taken too much shots as well. In the last 3 fights, he's taken probably more shots than any other boxer in the top 15 in the world has ever in their career. And you're not meant to do that as a heavyweight boxer. You put too much mileage on the clock. And yeah, I honestly don't know where Joe Joyce goes from here. Him and Moses Atoma is a good fight, but is that another step up for Atoma, or is that just Moses Atoma potentially, you could argue now, is here and Joe Joyce is down here now? Because Atoma, you don't do that to Marius Vac, what he did, stop him. And you looked at Fraser Clark last year. Fraser Clark struggled over 10 rounds with him at the York Hall, and I found something interesting when I was watching it. Marius Vac, when he made his professional debut, Moses Atoma was 5 months old, and look at him now. It's unbelievable. And you look at prospects, him and Johnny Fisher are the next big thing in British boxing, or in the heavyweight division, because them two fighting would be incredible. But I think that's down the line when you've got the Fury and Joshua rivalry. Put them two into the mix in 5 years' time or something.
Yeah, and to sort of properly jump over to Moses Atoma, and like I said already, and Ben touched on it as well, it was an unbelievable performance, and he is one of the best prospects in heavyweight boxing. I think his biggest problem at the moment is rounds. He needs to get rounds in. He'll fill out that heavyweight frame in years to come. He still looks quite small for a heavyweight, but the kid's only 19. That's expected. It was a cracking finish, but he needs to get some rounds in. So someone like Chisora might not be the worst idea, even though that their levels are probably already a gap in between, just because I think, Chisora's, as smart as it comes, as wide as it comes in the ring. And someone like that for Moses Atoma to have to try and unpick and work through isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. I don't know if you agree with me on that, Ben, or if you're promoter Ben, we always back you for the promotion. Is there another fight you reckon that's better for him?
No, I think you're right, to be fair. Like we keep saying, it was a really good performance on the weekend, and against someone in Marius Vac who hasn't been stopped that early in a fight before. It's the earliest he's ever been stopped in a fight, and he's fought some very good opponents. So it shows the sort of skill level of Atoma. I think after the weekend he was mandatory for the English title, which would be Solomon Dacre's fight. But after what we've seen on the weekend, he's probably past that now and is looking beyond English title level. So I think the likes of Joe Joyce, Chisora, that type of fight might be the right next move for him, to give him another test, but you don't want to push him too early where he's up against a very good heavyweight, and then it's a stumbling block in his career. He's still very young, he's still got plenty of time. So yeah, I think it's just about building him smart in the right way. But I was very impressed with him on the weekend, and like, for a heavyweight, the big guy, he moves very fast and has got such a good skill set. Like, sometimes when you're watching him, you forget that he's a heavyweight.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. Atoma, when I read he was 19 years old, I didn't believe it. He doesn't look 19, does he? And he's still got time to grow. That's the worrying thing. He still hasn't got his man strength yet, and that's very scary. And you talk about names there. Otto Wallin for last weekend. Remember Otto Wallin against Tyson Fury over in Vegas? Made him have a hard night's work. That could potentially be a very good fight there, instead of having a Queensbury fighter against a Queensbury fighter. But yeah, I wouldn't be against the Moses Atoma Derek Chisora fight, or even a Joe Joyce fight. I think both of them are very good. And yeah, you said about he's gone past the English title level. Yeah, you can argue he's at European level, if not knocking on the door of world belt titles and all that. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised come this time next year we're talking about Moses Atoma in a in a world title fight, because obviously after this rematch with Fury and Usyk, the belts are gonna go, and we're gonna have numerous heavyweight champions. And for me, that's probably better for the sport, ain't it? Because box heavyweights then, as much as I hate all the belts, I think there should only be one belt because there should only be one number one. But that's another argument for another day. But with other belts, then there's other avenues where we can build more, build different like fights with fighters and build the narrative better. And Moses Atoma for me, because he's only 19. You look at Fury. What's Fury? 34, 35, like that, even younger maybe. He's got so many years ahead of him. Boxing's in a good place, and Moses Atoma, like I said last week, if he wanted to make a statement, he had to stop Vac, and he did it in the best possible fashion early, and he didn't stop him. He absolutely destroyed him, and yeah, what a performance by him, and I look forward to seeing what's next for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well with Moses Atoma, the thing you can look at him with even more excitement is he's part of that stable they've got over at Ben Davison's gym. Obviously, learning from the best in Anthony Joshua, but also has the best team behind him. You rarely see, if ever, you can say that Davison's team picking a wrong fight for a fighter. You generally they pick the right fights at the right times, and not just that, they get the tactics right. They obviously do the work behind the scenes to put their fire. So yeah, just in every way possible, we're excited to see what's next for Moses Atoma. And another fight on the card, Ryan Garner versus Archie Sharp. This was one that you said, Harry, you thought was going to be maybe slightly more one-sided than it was. Were you impressed more so by Archie Sharp than you thought you were going to be, or even though obviously Ryan Garner got the win that we both predicted as well?
I thought it would be, well, I thought it would be a lot more one-sided than it was. It was very competitive, the fight. Fair play to Archie Sharp. He definitely did surprise me, but yeah, Ryan Garner, what a performance again. What was it, the British and Commonwealth title? So next level now is up to the European level and potentially challenging for a world title come the start of 2025. And I think I went for a stoppage. That's how much I went against Archie Sharp. So I apologise there. Archie Sharp is a decent fighter, and people are calling for the rematch. I saw people online saying they wouldn't mind seeing them two run it back. I wouldn't be against it. But yeah, Ryan Garner, he's a very good boxer, and he showed his class because Archie Sharp in that fight started strongly, but then as the fight went on, as Ryan Garner got into gear, it was more one-sided. But I don't know who we could face next. Maybe European level, but yeah, it's big things to come. And the entire card, you talked about last weekend, the Magnificent Seven card, that was incredible. This weekend, I thought the fights were even better than that.
Yeah, it was a good win for Ryan Garner, like you said, against someone in Archie Sharp who's 25-0 going into the fight. So he had a bit more experience over Garner, but a very good fight, very competitive fight between the two. And obviously now it's about, like you said, moving up. He's won that British title, going towards European level. I was having a little look at possible future fights, and I was thinking a good test for him to move forward. I thought someone who's fought against a British fighter before in Lee Wood. I was looking at Mauricio Lara as probably a possible test for him to move forward.
I've got good memories
like
of Mauricio Lara.
No, I don't. What I am thinking though is that Garner versus Lara would make an unbelievable fight, because the tank that Garner's got, the pressure he puts on fighters, and really, I think for me that's what won him that fight against Sharp was his tank and his energy and his pressure with his feet, the way he cuts off the ring, and really. Sharp could never have kept up the first two rounds for the whole fight. That's how he was winning those early rounds, was he was having to put a hell of a lot of effort in to get out of the way of Garner, and eventually he was going to slow him down. Eventually he was going to catch up to him. And the thing with Garner and Lara is they'd both be doing the same thing to each other. It's one of those fights I think you could duct tape their ankles together and you'd have a similar fight anyway, because they wouldn't leave each other's side. It would be an absolute war. So yeah, a brilliant fight and a really good test, because Lara, like we've seen, has given Lee Wood, and I'm sure you guys will go, with the badge out, Josh Warrington, some world level fighters here. He's given them a tough time, a very tough time, and so yeah, it would be a a really good test for him in that one. And then Dennis McCann, Baluta, obviously the rematch for that one. Baluta's just signed Vogue Boxing, a guy we know, Dan Francis. The Welsh Eddie Hearn is now part of the team managing him, but he lost the rematch to Dennis McCann. Dennis McCann got his revenge, I suppose, or righted his wrong. I don't know if you managed to catch up on that one, Ben, but what did you make of Dennis the Menace's performance?
Yeah, I've seen some clips of it, but very impressive again from McCann, and it shows since the first fight how he's sort of taken a step forward and improved. Because I think in the first fight he found it a bit tricky at times and got dragged into a bit of a fight that ended up, I think, a split decision draw, but dominated this time around. I thought a lot better performance. And yeah, like I said, it shows his progression and he can move forward now past that. He's got that out of the way, a very good win. And it looks like a possible British clash with Liam Davis could be the next move. And I think that'd be a brilliant fight to watch between them two. Two really good fighters that are going to stick it on each other. And I think it'd be a great fight to watch.
It's so good having promoter Ben back, ain't it? Look at these fights already. He's just said Ryan Garner, Mauricio Lara. Oh, wow. Yeah, but like you say, Ben, it was a very good performance by Dennis McCann. And, I'm just looking at the scorecard here. How much do you really believe that Baluta only lost every single round? Rollold Norcus had it 120-108. And I'm not being funny. There's no way Dennis McCann won every single round in that fight. I thought 117-111 was fair. But I don't know if you boys were seeing in the press conference and in the weigh-in. I want to see Baluta again. Fair play. He was really good at the press conference. So I wouldn't mind, watching him fight again. And we had Anis Taj obviously doing the translation as well up there. But yeah, he can come again, Baluta. Losing to McCann is fine because he's a decent prospect. And yeah, it's just great to see.
Yeah, and do you know what? As we're talking through this, I sort of echo what you said about this being such a strong card because I'm looking at the other fights. Obviously, Sean Noakes. We're not going to have time to go through all of these fights in such detail, but Sean Noakes got an impressive performance with a win. Raven Chapman got a strong win, and Raven Chapman wants some big fights up down at featherweight. And then the other one is obviously Adam Hamed, son of Prince Nassim Hamed. Won over Georgi Velikov, a dominant performance. He looks like an interesting fighter, Hamed. He's got a really good jab. His fundamentals are great. His stance is really strong. And yes, he didn't necessarily leave first gear in that fight. And, but that's what Velikov was there to do. Velikov was there to tuck up. And we've seen him lose to Joe Morgan via a finish. And so maybe we're thinking that he's susceptible. But this is a guy who doesn't get stopped too often. And Adam Hamed made him look silly. Now his first fight, obviously under Queensbury. Are we saying that he's going to be at the same level of his dad? I don't know what you think about that, Ari, or is it just it's way too early to say people are going to make that comparison?
Well, I think I agree. It's a bit too early because you look at the Nigel Benn and Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr., Ricky Hatton and Campbell Hatton. I think what you need to say is he's his own fighter. Let his career, keep him. What we saw on Saturday night, he needs a couple more fights like that, and then potentially we could start talking about him copying his dad's success. But I thought it was quite funny at the press conference when they announced that he was getting signed with Queensbury, and his dad said, "Who's going to be as good as me?" So, yeah, I can definitely see it. I wouldn't mind seeing another Prince Nassim Hamed sort of run. I thought he was really good box office, weren't he, back in the day watching it? But yeah, it was a very good performance, and I didn't even realise, but we did watch that Bulgarian guy down in Cardiff, so we knew he was going to be tough, and that's what they get paid to do, ain't it? Maris Vat got paid to give Moses Atoma rounds. That didn't happen, but that's what you need for these youngsters coming through now. You need to give them a test where the person opposite them knows they're going to lose, but they know they're fighting to fight next weekend and all that. So it was a really good performance, and overall, like I said, that was so much better than that Magnificent Seven card. I thought, entertainment-wise, maybe I'm saying that because I had to catch up the following day, and all the fights were 10 rounds, 12 rounds, 10 rounds, 12 rounds, first round stop bigs, all this and that. But it was a decent night of boxing, and shout out to Sam for giving me a Weatherspoons for it. And the Mexican commentators I had were quite funny because in the main event they changed their scorecards on 2 occasions. So it was a decent night of boxing.
Yeah, like you said, sometimes it's the worry that when you've got a name behind you, like it carries that added pressure, and sometimes you've got a risk of being pushed too quickly. But with Queensbury under Frank Warren, I think they know how to. They've done it enough times now. They know how to play smart, build him up the right way, and we've seen with the likes before, like we said, with Campbell Hatton, where the pressure's been put on them quite fast, and the name of their father and being sort of compared too much, and then it ends up falling apart a bit, and they've got to take a step back and rebuild. But yeah, he looked impressive on the weekend. Another solid win against a tough opponent, and yeah, it's just about building him up the right way now and getting him towards title shots and seeing how his own career goes and not comparing too much to his father, who was a great in the sport.
Fingers crossed we get to see another fighter of that level of Prince Nassim. And while we're on the topic of Prince Nassim, there's been a lot of comparisons between himself and Ben Whittaker, a guy that we interviewed recently on the channel. So if you haven't seen that already, if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, I'll put it on the little tag thing over there, wherever it is. If you're listening on Spotify, pop onto YouTube after you listen to the episode, give that interview a watch, because it's Ben Whittaker, man. We've got Ben Whittaker on the channel. Get it watched. He spoke about pressure.
What a humble
Someone
guy
who didn't.
he was. What a humble guy he
Yeah,
was.
true.
Really lovely
Very
bloke.
chill.
Fair play to him.
A fighter that didn't feel any pressure on the weekend. Claressa Shields fighting for the world heavy. I think that makes her, was it a 5-weight champion now in women's boxing? Harry posed the question to me: is she the GWOAT, the greatest woman of all time? Not the greatest woman, but the greatest female fighter of all time. I'm sure there's some successful women out
She
there
can make that
question that
argument
one
as well.
She can try. Ben, do you think she's the greatest female fighter of all time after that victory? Now a world heavyweight champ.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against her, really, isn't it? Like you said, 5-weight world champion. I don't think anyone's really come close to causing her any issues, and it's hard to see who could get in there across the whole of women's boxing, who could get in there and cause her any problems, to be honest. I don't think there's anyone up there at the moment that beats her, anyone coming through that has got a chance of beating her, so I think she's just going to keep picking up whatever titles she wants to go after, to be honest.
There's no one else to fight now, is there, for Claressa Shields? The only fight that makes sense for me is that Savannah Marshall fight. It's not even in a boxing ring; it's in the cage. I think in the PFL, but I did get it wrong. Sorry, she beat Vanessa Lepage Honise to become a 4-division world champion. So apologies there, boys. I completely messed that bit up, but it was a really good performance. People were saying that with the extra weight, how's she going to manage and all that? We didn't find out, did we? She got it over in under 4 minutes, and she moves on to the next thing now. And yeah, I there's a strong argument that Claressa Shields, she is the GWOAT, and yeah, it would be interesting to see what happens next with her. I want to see that Savannah Marshall fight in the cage. She's done boxing now. How many times have you ever seen a boxer clean up her division and then move up all the divisions and then go over to the UFC or even PFL for her fighting league? She can do it. I would back her, and her and Savannah Marshall, that's the fight to make. They fought before, I want to say. I don't know what the result was like. I don't even know if that was even in the professional ranks. But make that fight happen in the cage or even in the square circle. I want to see it.
Yeah, I think that is the only fight for her. I was looking quite extensively at the women's division, and outside of a really, really strong welterweight division, obviously where we've got the likes of Michaela Meyer, Tasha Jonas, Lauren Price, Sandy Ryan, a really stacked division. From there upwards, there's no real sort of standout champions until you reach Claressa Shields at world heavyweight, and you would expect her to walk through every single fighter between her and welterweight. if she had the interest to meet them at any given weight. So yeah, I think the MMA is the way forward for her. We've seen, the money people sometimes move over there as well, and the fights, and I just think it makes more sense for her to do that because there's no real fights left in boxing. I was really impressed, however, with the atmosphere inside that arena. When she was fighting, when she got the knockout as well, I thought, this in the nicest way possible. Women's boxing doesn't always have that big atmosphere, that big following, that big support that the male sport always gets. And so to see when she got that finish, the crowd on their feet, you could hear the noise. I thought that was really, really great. And yeah, just undoubtedly what she has, not necessarily what she's done for the sport, because like I said, Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, Chantel Cameron, there's some female boxers that have done unbelievable things for the sport. But if you're talking personal achievement alone, I think, she stands without a doubt, above the rest. And then from someone who's done really, really well to something that's not gone quite so well, the Olympic boxing for Team GB so far. Ben, you dropped a message. I think it was yourself that dropped a message in the chat. What's going wrong? What's happening?
I don't know. They've had a bit of a nightmare, and the results just haven't gone their way in any of the fights. I don't think we've had a British fighter yet that has picked up a win at the Olympics. But even last night I was watching Delicious Ori, who was probably one of the favourites in terms of what Britain were looking at medal wise, and he'd gone out in the first round after a split decision loss. So I thought he'd won the fight. It was a close fight, but I thought he'd done enough to win it. But yeah, it's not the be all and end all if they don't do amazing things at the Olympics, but it can play a big part in. We've seen it before. If you get a medal, it helps push you on in terms of starting in the professional ranks. So I'm sure some of them will go again in the next Olympics, but yeah, it hasn't been a great one for Team GB this summer.
Well, something needs to change, don't it? 4 days in, and there's already been worse decisions in the ring than Tokyo. That Delicious Ori fight, I thought he comfortably won it. You could. I thought it was 3-0. I had it, but that's potentially me being a British and being biased. But yeah, when they announced the Armenian guy that he won, I thought this is unbelievable. I think it was Rosie Eccles as well. I think her name is the other fighter. The loss against some Polish girl. That was a very close fight, and obviously she got knocked out. But yeah, I mean, what do they do now as amateurs? If they've got to the Olympics, they've got knocked out in the first round. Do they try again, or do they go over now and turn pro? Because I don't know about you boys, but Delicious Ori, he's got the best name in boxing, and he could be a superstar. So you could get him to turn over. We don't want a Fraser Clark on our hands, do we? Where they've turned over too late and we have to push him through the ranks because of how old they are. Get him. He's had his Olympics now. Let's go professional and let's see how he can really do against some of the big boys.
Yeah, I think with Delicious Ori, there was a lot of pressure on his shoulders. We've got an incredible record recently of heavyweight boxers in the amateur ranks, and he was obviously the next sort of in line for that, and he put an end to that record, unfortunately, or that record had an end put to it. But I think for me, in Britain, we don't necessarily create amateur boxers. I think we make better professionals than we do amateurs. You look at sort of the Eastern European states, certainly Russia, Ukraine, make excellent amateur boxers. Their style, the Soviet style, the pendulum step coming in and out of range, it makes very, very good amateur boxers. And, we've seen the likes of Lomachenko having obscene records, Alexander Usyk, 100 plus wins. We don't necessarily make amateurs in that way. So anything that we do in the Olympics, for me, always feels like a really big bonus. And like you say, I think, turnover pro, if you've made it to the Olympics, and sometimes fighters get stuck wanting to right their wrongs because it can be over so quickly with those 3 rounds. They think, if I just only change this little thing, then it would have been enough. And that's not always the case because, the next time you come up against someone different and it's a different challenge and you might have corrected that one little thing, but they bring something else. It's such a brutal, difficult sport. And then by the time you've contended with the issues with amateur judging and stuff, God, it's a frustrating one and a difficult one to take for all of them.
I remember watching Michael Conlon after his fight when he lost in the Olympics and he was swearing left, right, and centre. But I've just found something here which is quite interesting. It's the first time now since 2008 at the Beijing Olympics that GB haven't won a medal. 2008, David Price won bronze. 2012, AJ won gold. 2016 in Rio, Joyce won silver. And obviously at the last Olympics, Fraser Clark won bronze. It's broken now. The streak is over, but yeah, you make it to the Olympics. That's the pinnacle of amateur boxing is the Olympics. That's like a world title fight for him. All of get in there. Now that he wasn't successful, does he go back to the Europeans, to the World Championship? No. Let's see what you can do in the pro ranks. I think that's the obvious next move. And I want to say as well, Pat Brown as well. Shout out to him. He had a really good fight against a very experienced, I want to say he was from Brazil. I don't know his name. But there's been a lot of shocks as well in the Olympics. I think La Cruz, one of the favourites for that heavyweight tournament, was knocked out in the first round. So yeah, it's still interesting to watch. But as a Brit watching it, you're a bit gutted that you can't support your own in it. But there we go. That's boxing, ain't it? And sometimes the judges ruin it for others. So that's it.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and we always say it. Boxing's boxing. You can't change it. You won't change it. But it's frustrating nonetheless. To jump back over to the professional ranks, preview some of the fights coming up this weekend or next weekend. What we'll do first before we go on to the huge card that we're going to use our predictions on the Boxing News app is we've got a card on in Oakwell Football Ground, the Barnsley Stadium up in Barnsley. Me and Harry are going to be attending that show, so there will be some content coming on the channel surrounding that, so keep your eyes peeled, subscribe if you haven't already. We're not going to go into too much detail, obviously, because there will be more content to come, so you're better off just jumping over and waiting for the interviews and whatnot to hit your feed rather than spending too long. But Zach Chelli, Callum Simpson, a really exciting fight. Caroline Dubois, obviously the fighting for the IBO world title. Stephen McKenna, Joe Laws. It's a good show. Ben, are you disappointed not to be up for this one? Which are the fights you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm gutted I'm not going to be there, but looking forward to whatever content you guys pick up whilst you're up there and some of the people you're going to be able to chat to. There's some really good fights on there again, another good boxer card in another stadium. So they're ticking off the stadium slowly, but a British title fight in the main event, they're always going to be good. Between Callum Simpson and Zach Chelli, it's been bubbling over now for a couple of months. I think it's been building quite nicely, and looking forward to fight week now where it really ramps up. And yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting fight between the two. I probably tip in towards Simpson, but Zach Chelli's got the potential to really stick it on him, and he's going to have to be careful in that fight. And obviously, Chelli's going in there with the belt, so he's not gonna. You're gonna have to go and take it off him. So I think it'd be a very good main event. Obviously, we talk about Dubois as well in another good test, helping build her career. She's been put in some tough tests already in her career, like in the short time as a professional. So that's another good stepping stone for her towards more world title shots. Yeah, it's going to be a really good night. I think you two are in for a bit of a cracker.
I think the main event is going to be a cracker. I think what we've seen in the recent weeks with Nathan Heaney and Brad Pauls is if we're going with down that route with British title fights and all that, we're definitely in for a cracker. But yeah, this is a big test for Simpson. You know what you get with Zach Chelli. He's tough, he's durable, and he's not going to come to Barnsley and just hand over those British titles. He's going to put up a fight, and yeah, it's going to be a really good night of boxing. That Stephen McKenna, Joe Laws fight, very exciting fight because Joe Laws, he beat Michael Hennessy Jr. last time out. That wasn't meant to happen. So and I think there's a bit of needle between them two. There's a bit of needle between the main event as well. I don't know if you boys saw at the Shard yesterday, they had like some sort of media day. I think they did it because Ben Shalom's going over to LA with Martin Bacoli, but it's going to be a great night. And these British title fights, I think we say it now on a regular basis. These British title fights, they always deliver no matter what because of how much it means to a fighter. You know, you talk to other boxers in the professional ranks, what's the aims when you go through it? And they say titles, and they always say the British title. Once you are British champion, then you can start mixing with the top 15 in the world, top 10, and potentially more. And yeah, Callum Simpson's in a massive test this weekend, and if he gets through this, instead of having just one stand open and a little section on the pitch, his next fight next summer could potentially be Oakwell Stadium, sold out. I don't know what the capacity is up there. 25,000. Sam, you're from Yorkshire, no?
Yeah, something like that. It's sort of high teens, low 20s, I think, but don't quote me on that.
Okay. Oh, fair enough then. But yeah, it's going to be a good night. It's sold out in less than 24 hours. So yeah, I think the atmosphere is going to be good. If there's anything like any Yorkshireman I know, it's going to be a very good night, and everyone's going to be very hospitable and all that. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to going up there to Barnsley. Another stadium ticked off as well out of the 92 for me. So happy days.
Yeah, and you guys have said pretty much everything that could be said about the Callum Simpson Zach Chelli fight. So the only other one for me that I'm really excited for is Caroline Dubois. She's obviously fighting for that world lightweight in the WBC interim. If she gets the win on that one, then she'd be looking at possibly Katie Taylor. If Katie Taylor doesn't get rid of her world light, because obviously she's fighting Serrano up at super light, I believe. So that is something to keep an eye on. And the other one is Rhiannon Dixon, which could be an unbelievable domestic women fight between Caroline Dubois and Rhiannon Dixon for those two world titles. I think Beatrice Ferreira, I think, is the other one that owns a world title at that level. So another matchroom fighter. So there's a lot of great fights. Caroline Dubois, only 23. She's a young fighter, much like her brother. She's a really young fighter amongst her division, and she's already, clashing with the people at the very top. So really, really exciting to see. But maybe not quite as exciting as Israel Madrimov versus Terence Crawford at the BMO Stadium in Los Angeles, the first Riyadh season card outside of Riyadh, outside of Saudi Arabia. Just a phenomenal card. Pitbull Cruz, Andy Cruz, a man that Jared said to us, Andy Cruz, remember the name? And we were thinking, who is this Andy Cruz? And, the guy's, a special talent. Jared Anderson, the return of Andy Ruiz versus Jarrell Miller. Harry's going to be, turning his nose up at that one. But Ben, for you, which one's the best fight on this card? Which fights are you looking forward to seeing?
Oh, it's an hard one to choose, really, because they've put together a really good card, and they've even got some fights on the public workout to finish the public workout as well, I think. So he's thrown a lot of money at it, and it's something, again, that we haven't seen in boxing. It's going to be a really good week, I think, of build-up and everything for it, but I don't think you can look past the main event of Crawford and Madrimov. I think it's his biggest test. Crawford stepping up in weight again against the fighter Madrimov, who's probably, you could argue, the best of that weight class. So he's not just stepping up and taking on a bit of a challenge. He's gone right to the top and really tested himself. And if he can get through this weekend, then obviously he's looking at that Canelo fight, which again is another jump up to 168. So he's really trying to make a statement, I think, in terms of putting himself amongst possibly the greatest fighters we've ever seen. But he's got to get through this test on the weekend, and it's not going to be easy, because I think the weight difference is what's going to probably give it the evenness between the two of them. But Crawford is such a skillful fighter. We've seen the Errol Spence fight when he was going into that. That was meant to be his tough test, and he just schooled him that night and made Errol Spence look like nowhere near world level. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to him from top to bottom again. In terms of a Saudi show, it's really, really good.
Completely agree. What a show, Saudi Arabia in Los Angeles this week. I think they're on Santa Monica Pier. They're doing all the workouts and all that, the Chinese theatre and all. But yeah, that main event, Israel Madrimov, Terence Crawford, is a really, really tough to call because you don't know how much of a jump up in weight is going to affect Crawford. But yeah, you look at the card, Andy Ruiz against my mate, Big Baby Miller. Yeah, I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself here, but as much as I don't like him, Jarrell Miller, he's got a chance on Saturday night because there's a lot of question marks with Andy Ruiz. Because how much does he want it now? Because he hit, his biggest moment in his career that night at Madison Square Gardens, where he shocked everyone, where he stopped and gave Anthony Joshua his first ever loss, and then obviously then in the rematch, how much did he take that seriously with it? But he came in a stone heavier in that rematch against AJ. But yeah, it's on Saturday night. We're going to see if Andy Ruiz is still as good of a boxer as he was back then, because he's only fought since then maybe once against Luis Ortiz, if I'm right. There could be other fights in there. I haven't. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, listen, Miller's got a chance here, and I don't think it's going to be the prettiest of fights. I think it could be an argument that we see Joyce versus Derek Chisora 2.0, but another heavyweight fight on the card. Jared Anderson is in a fight that I can't believe is being made. I don't get it. I think it's a bit too soon for him. Martin Bakoli's no mug. I want to say Martin Bakoli fought Carlos Takam last time out on that Battle of the Baddest on the undercard of Fury and Ghani. But yeah, this fight for Jared Anderson is the sort of fight that we had with Johnny Fisher a couple of weeks ago, but a bigger test. Jared Anderson's now been gifted this opportunity. That Riyad Mehi fight, he wasn't very good in. It was a very boring fight. But yeah, this fight on Saturday night for him, for Jared Anderson, is the test of, can you do it with the best, some of the best in the world? And Martin Bakoli's definitely up there in the top 15 in my rankings. He's a very good fighter, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few shocks on Saturday night in both those three fights I've just called. And then in the Pitbull Cruz fight, I'm going for an upset in that one when we do the predictions. That Valunzela, apologies for the mispronunciation of the name, but they're all 50-50s. And what I've learned from these Riyadh season cards, even though we're going to be absolutely knackered come, midnight Saturday night, I think we're going to sit down and put the computer on or put the telly on, and we're going to be watching, because they're all box office, aren't they? Let's be honest. Every fight is very good. They're competitive, and like you say, on Wednesday we've got a fight night with Mark Castro on the Santa Monica Pier. Who has ever thought about doing that before? In fight week, you're talking about the fight night on Saturday night so much, but then on Wednesday you get an appetite, a canapé like what we had at the gym opening we went to last week. We're having a little taster of what's to come on Saturday night, and I can't wait. Imagine that in London now. They do a midweek fight card at Piccadilly Circus or in front of the London Eye or something. It's going to be great. And yeah, this Riyadh season card in LA is special, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to watching it. The only problem I've got with it is it's $24.99 for us Brits. I don't know if that's good, but there we go. I'm definitely going to still be paying for it, so who cares?
Yeah, I can live with the $24.99 for what's looking to be a really, really quality full card, which we're going to be doing, like I said, predictions on the Boxing News app. So get your phones out, boys. Get the predictions ready. They've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights on there. So they haven't got all the fights on there, but they've got a number of them. And if a couple more pop up on there, we can maybe do them just on our own to get the ball rolling. I think Andy Ruiz versus Jarrell Miller, heavyweight 10-rounder, is going to be the. It's not in order of it happening, but that's the first one on the predictions app. It's quite a difficult one to call, this one, but not necessarily because I think it's a hugely high level fight. Perhaps even the opposite. It's so hard to call because I'm not sure of the quality of either fighter. I'm gonna go for a Ruiz finish. I think. I think he's got a bit more about him than Miller. I don't know. I think Miller's head's gone, and you will never catch me predict a Miller win because I don't like the guy. Like you say, what are you going for this one on Harry? I've always wanted to know what you want to say with Gerald Miller.
I've I've got Ruiz points decision. I think what we saw with Miller last time out against Dubois, he's not gonna make Ruiz win. They're good friends as well, him and Ruiz. But yeah, Andy Ruiz for me points decision. But like you say, how much does Andy Ruiz want it? That's the questions going into this fight. Has he still got it? Can he go after this fight then move up and fight the likes of Parker, Zhang, a timer? I've put a timer in that list of names there. Ajit Kabayel, all those names. If he gets through Jarrell Miller, then he's back in conversation with those big names in the heavyweight division. But if he loses, which, I hate to say it, it can happen. It's heavyweight boxing, but it is very likely as well, because Ruiz, for me, after that AJ first win, he just potentially let the money get to his head a little bit. But yeah, I've got Ruiz points decision, but I think it's going to be a Joe Joyce, Derek Chisora 2.0, where they're both just trying to land bombs on him from the first bell to the last bell.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's going to depend a lot on how much Ruiz wants it and what's his mindset going into the fight, and is it just a thing of he's come back for a payday, he wants more money, is that his only sort of want, and then sometimes if it is that, then it's not always for the right reasons, and who could end up being caught out. And Miller, I think he's, as much as you two are not the biggest fan, he's been working hard recently, I think, and he's got himself in some decent shape, and he could I think it's going to be a lot closer fight on the weekend than maybe some people are making out. But I'm going to go for a Ruiz decision. I think it'll be quite close, but I think Ruiz will just have enough of a skill gap to get the decision on the weekend.
Yeah, it could happen. Miller's been on that prison diet, hasn't he? After he allegedly stole a car or whatever it was in the end. Jared Anderson versus Martin Bacol, like Harry said, could be a serious banana skin for Jared Anderson. This is two fighters that on average don't go for more than 4 rounds for their entire career. Martin Bacol, 21 fights, only 80 rounds of boxing. Jared Anderson, 17 fights, only 56 rounds of boxing. Ben, what's your prediction?
I think if you said there's a potential banana skin, I think it is going to be this weekend. I've gone for Martin Bacoli by stoppage. I just got, it's a very tough test, and Bacoli's only been beaten once against another American fighter in Michael Hunter. And I think maybe that's what they've looked at. They've just seen Michael Hunter get a win and think, oh, we can step in there and get a win as well. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a really tough test. And again, it's a matter of, we've seen Jared Anderson speak before. I think it's a matter of how much he really wants it and what his ambitions are in terms of really testing himself at the highest level. And yeah, I think it's going to be, maybe some people will see it as an upset on Saturday, but I'm going for Bacoli by stoppage.
I agree. Bacoli by stoppage all day long. I wasn't impressed with his performance against Mirad. Mary, like you say, how much does he want it? Top rank. They haven't got, well, the US in the whole haven't got an up and coming heavyweight boxer, have they? And the up and coming heavyweight boxer is Jared Anderson, and he's in a big fight this weekend. For me, when I saw this fight happening, I went, "What? What are they doing? That's possibly the worst possible fight they could make for Jared Anderson. It's the biggest step up. People are comparing this fight to him against Charles Martin. He didn't look very good against Charles Martin, and he doesn't like it when he gets hit, when the pressure's on him and people are coming forward and on. He doesn't like that. Martin Bacoli ain't going to be on the back foot, let's be honest. He's going to be coming forward, and he's going to potentially be looking to change his life, change his career. If he wins on Saturday night, like we say, his winner stays on in this sort of Saudi Arabian boxing we're in at the moment. We've seen it with Mark Chamberlain. We're seeing it a lot with Joseph Parker. The winner stays on. The winner gets the bigger fights. And yeah, I like I said, yeah, I think Top Rank have made a mistake here. Maybe they've looked at the O's on the end of the contract and thought, yeah, we'll take that, instead of actually reading in on Martin Piccoli. And yeah, it is a banana skin, and I've got Piccoli. I would say, well, what was it? 4 rounds. They're not known for going past 4 rounds on your stats, Sam, that you said earlier.
Yeah.
So early stoppage then for me.
See, you guys got me doubting myself now, but I had a Jared Anderson knockout, and I am going to stick with it. I think, the guy's a Riyadh season ambassador. The guy's fighting in a card in America. I to suggest that they haven't done their research or haven't done their homework, I think they will have done, and I think Jared Anderson will have to give a step up in performance to beat Piccoli, but I think he probably will. So I am going to go for the Jared Anderson knockout again, obviously quite early on. Andy Cruz versus Antonio Moran, lightweight 10-rounder. Andy Cruz has only ever done 10-rounders in his career. He won I believe it's the IBF International lightweight belt in his first fight. Comes off the back of being one of the best amateurs of all time. He's possibly the biggest lightweight I've ever seen. He gives Gavin Gwynn a run for his money of looking at him and going, that man's not a lightweight. And I think he's going to get a points decision win on this one. I think a win is a near guarantee, and I don't think he has that sort of push for a finish at this point in his career. So I think he will go for a dominant points decision victory. What about you, Harry?
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there. Andy Cruz points decision. His last performance was at that Royal Carib on the undercard of Edgar Berlanga, I want to say. So yeah, he's a very good fighter. And I remember when, like you said a bit earlier about Jared, who we had on the podcast a couple of months back, saying watch out for him. There's me agreeing with him. Yeah, I know who he is. I didn't actually know who Andy Cruz was, and then I went back home, checked up YouTube, and watched some of his fights. And yeah, he is very special. And yeah, points decision. And like his last fight, I don't think he loses a round.
Yeah, I think we've all got his clean sweep. You know you're always going to have a good fight with two South Americans, and I think it's going to be another good battle on Saturday night. But yeah, that points decision, I think all of us are going for that. And another, all Mexican fight is the next one up, I think.
Yeah, Isaac Pitbull Cruz versus Jose Valenzuela. Pitbull Cruz obviously coming off the back of I suppose an upset at the time against Rolly Romero. Jose Valenzuela, a significantly taller fighter. I think he's a good sort of 15, maybe closer to 20 centimeters taller than him. He's a lot taller, and it's going to be a difficult fight for Pitbull Cruz. Harry, you've kind of laid the gauntlet out, saying that you think it's going to be a Valenzuela victory. How do you see that coming? Is it points or is it a knockout?
I think, like you said about the height, I think that's my concern. But I'm all about predictions here. I don't care. Obviously, I didn't even say that I won last weekend. I thought I'd just get that in there. You know, and lucky both of you. Try harder next time. God.
I
Boxing.
wasn't allowed to take part.
Yeah, that's why I won. That's how I won. And you can't take part this week, Andrew. No, I think Venezuela. He can get. I'm backing him to get a points decision because he's talking about the height. And Pitbull Cruz, he is quite small, and yeah, it's a decent fight. But yeah, points decision for Venezuela. Mexican against Mexican as well. It's always fireworks, and you never see a Mexican get stopped, do you, when they come over to the UK? So yeah, decent fight as well, by the way. Really good fight.
Yeah, it's got the potential to be one of the fights of the night, I think. And we're going opposite here though, because I'm going for Pitbull Cruz by decision.
And that's how Ben wins. That's how Ben wins. There you go.
Really impressed with him against Rolly Romero. Yeah, he's got the fight in him. I think he'll show it again Saturday night. I think he's gonna pick up I think it'd be close. Could even be as close as a split decision, I think. But yeah, Cruz win on points. I'm gonna go for.
Yeah, I think same for me. I think Cruz will get his first title defense out the way. I think he'll come through good. I believe him in that one. David Morel versus Radivoje Kalajic, light heavyweight 12-rounder. I mean, this is predicted to be at like 5 a.m. This is going to be a late one for us, or an early start possibly might be a better option. But David Morel, light heavyweight 12-rounder, I've gone for a Morel knockout. The guy's got, I think, near 90% KO rate. He nearly always gets a KO, and I like a Cuban fighter, and I think he's going to get the finish in this one.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. 9 knockouts out of 10 fights, and it's probably going to carry on this weekend. I've gone for a stoppage as well for Morel.
Completely agree with you both there. I just read the WhatsApp message again. Yeah, David Morrell with, he's, as all Cubans are, they're very good, aren't they, at what they do. The only losses his opponent has got are against Marcus Brown and Artur Beterbiev, and you lose to Artur Beterbiev, that's fine. But yeah, David Morrell for me, would I say early stoppage? Probably late stoppage. Round 11, I'll go for, if we're going for exact predictions. For bonus points, if I predict that, I'll get 10 points after my prediction in the last fight, just to keep in with you boys.
Not sure it works like that, bud, but we'll have to go to the judges. And then the main event, Israel Madrimov, Terence Crawford. The fight sells itself. The fight trailer sells the fight better than I think we ever could, or I know we ever could. Unbelievable fight. I think Terence Crawford's going to get the win on this one. I think it's going to be a tough test, a tougher test than the Errol Spence fight, possibly. But Terence Crawford in that Errol Spence fight, people were calling it a near 50-50 fight going into it. And it's one of the best performances I've ever seen in a ring. Like you say, he just wiped the floor with him. Don't think he's going to wipe the floor with Madrimov, but I think he's going to get the victory via points decision. I think Madrimov's going to be too tough to get out of there. But yeah, that's what I'm going to go for.
Yeah, this is Crawford's toughest fight of his career yet. He's moved up in weight again. Madrimov is no mug. He's not going to get pushed over. That fight trailer was really good, wasn't it? Let's be honest. That's probably the best one they've done yet. And what I liked as well yesterday, I don't know if you boys have seen it, but Eddie Hearn's trying to play mind games with Crawford, saying he's looking nervous and all that, challenging him to a game of darts. Wouldn't mind seeing that sometime this week as well. But yeah, Crawford for me, it's going to be close, but I think if he gets through it, which what I've got on here is points decision, he's probably number 2 in the pound for pound list for me, underneath Alexander Usyk, if he gets through this, and yeah, it's 6 a.m. this one as well, so I think our plans of staying up, Sam, might be out the window here, might have to take it in turns driving back or something, but yeah, it's gonna be a great fight, and it's a bit like that Jared Anderson fight. It's the sort of fight now where if he beats Madrimov and if he stops him, that Canelo fight with him later on in this year could look more likely. And yeah, it's going to be a great night.
Yeah, we've said plenty already. It's definitely his toughest test, and I think it depends a lot on how we get off this weekend, whether that Canelo fight ever happens. Because I think if he really struggles with the weight difference here on Saturday, then in terms of jumping up to 168 to Canelo, you're really taking a risk then, and it's probably smart to just see it's going to be too much. But it is an interesting fight because I think Madrimov has got the potential to beat Crawford with the weight advantage, but I was flipping between whether it be a points decision or stoppage for Crawford. So I think he could make a real statement. I'm going to take a bit of a risk and I'll say Crawford by stoppage.
Wow, fair enough. I did think about it. I was thinking the same thing, but I've decided to go for the points decision. But like you say, it really could be a finish. There's no reason why it couldn't be. Now that pretty much wraps it up for today's episode. We're just crossing over, I think, the hour point. So a little bit of a longer episode for you guys if you're listening, but there's so much good boxing going on at the moment. So we thought we'd treat you to it. This is our treat to you guys, an hour of the Puncher's Chance this week. Like I mentioned previously in the episode already, Ben Whittaker interview already out on the channel. Check that out if you haven't already. Coming up this week, we've obviously got the Boxer Show up in Barnsley. We've got a secret video project that we're filming on Wednesday that's going to be coming out this week at some point. So keep your eyes open for that. That's a really exciting thing coming to the channel. And then going forward from that, more great boxing, more great fights, more great shows, and more great episodes of the Puncher's Chance podcast. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Punches Chance. Punches Chance podcast.